What the heck is going on, everybody? Seriously, what's going on? Tell me about it. Um, I wanted to talk today about losing my mind and getting it back, and I'm gonna play some skate while we do that. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to say hi. Thank you very much for watching the past two videos. I'm happy that everybody is liking the pivot and that things are happening from it. I still haven't shared anything on my social media or anything, but it's we out here getting views, baby. 62 subs. Shout out to every single fucking one of you. I'm excited. So, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about mental illness. Mental illness, mate. Today, I wanted to tell my story a little bit while I am while I am getting into like establishing my YouTube channel, right? And these videos and all of the things that I've been chatting about. I want to lay some context and give y'all my story, who I am, right? And so I also think it's important to talk about mental illness because the stigma is crazy. No pun intended. But it's best if you share your story, people relate, and more people than you know relate to you or your story with mental illness. And so I think it's important. So speaking of which, I will have to take my medicine soon. So how I started taking medicine, what I take medicine for, and how I got here, right? So in 2018, 2019, I started struggling heavily with racing thoughts and lack of sleep. The racing thoughts I thought were something that was going to keep me up, right? And then the lack of sleep made the racing thoughts worse, and I slowly lost control of myself in my habits, right? Like hygiene, like eating, making sure that I am like taking care of myself and my people, right? But then also I started having these feelings of, oh, you know, I think some of my friends don't want the best for me. I think that some of the things I want to do are more important than the people around me, right? And so like started having what I didn't realize were delusions of grandeur, right? So you start thinking that like you're the most important thing, and that like for me it was art, and like music, which is really funny. I was like putting my SoundCloud above people, but that's how people knew that I wasn't myself and how I was getting sick. And I started going through very strange things, phases of this mental illness, and I didn't know what I had. I didn't know I was mentally ill yet. I was still very much in denial. And I also made I made a lot of like drastic life choices, like I lost a bunch of friends, and I lost, like, at the time, romantic partnerships, and I was just in general, I was not myself, but I was completely and utterly in denial of that, and like really forcefully trying to like take people out of my life that were trying to look out for me, right? And like trying to make sure I was the best version of myself. So what had happened was I got into I was moving from Harlem, East Harlem, to Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And so I was moving from one borough to another, and we were really young. I was like 19 or 20, and it was really expensive to get movers and stuff, so we were moving it all on our own. And I had a car that I was driving back and forth upstate from where my parents are from and where I grew up, where my parents live and where I grew up. And then I was traveling a lot, driving a lot, and not sleeping as much. And I eventually started started going through like really intense mood swings, and what had happened, like I was saying, is that I got into a small car accident doing all of this moving and driving, and I was in my grandma's car, and she had given it to me and my parents and everything, and my family had the car because she couldn't drive anymore, and I was driving it down to the city, and a 18 wheeler started reversing towards me on the highway, and this is when I learned a really important lesson to not to leave space in between yourself and trucks specifically, but any manual car, especially trucks because they're heavy, they'll roll back on you. We weren't on a super steep gradient, so nothing came to mind. I was still like a pretty new driver. I had driven a lot, but I had this like super big hubris of youth, and so I got hit in this really weird way. It was a hit and run. And that guy, I wouldn't even be surprised if he didn't notice. If he did notice, he was probably in the right because he was a truck and you're not supposed to get behind them like that. So I got into this car accident that wound up like really fucking up my ability, the car's ability, I should say, to work. Right, it was like a small crash, but I believe it led to the car being totaled. And so I went through that, and that was this kind of like trigger point where all of these, like, this insomnia and bad diet and bad like time hygiene, taking care of what I need to do as far as like little chores and laundry and cleaning my room, and like, oh my god, my room was such a mess. And like, I'm a messy person, that's fine, but good gracious, it's like haunting, and I was making a lot of art and smoking a lot of cigarettes and smoking a lot of weed, doing a lot of other illicit substances that are popular in college. And I didn't even do very much of it, but enough apparently to get my shit going. And it did. It was fucking crazy, man. And I was crazy. After the accident, I started getting paranoid delusions of grandeur, and I thought that the cops were going to get me. I thought that everyone was an actor or an agent, and that I was like in the Truman Show, right? And I thought that I was like being watched and hunted by like some form of conspiracy police, like some form of state ran police, secret police, and I was completely bought into these like crazy ideas, nanobots in the water, just all sorts of literally like just completely wild perceptions of reality that are not true, right? And I went through that for I think like about like 6 months before I had to be hospitalized for the first time. My roommates, if God bless them, I love them all very much. My best friends in my life, I was living with them, and they, in connection with my mom, got so they would hit up my mom about my status, right? And then my mom would have to make the decision, like, is it go time? Can I wait until the weekend? Do I need to take work off? Like, how urgent? What's the deal? And so eventually my mom took me to the emergency room, for being completely out of my mind and completely not myself, right? And not really safe to live around, or safe to, oh, come on. Ah, man. I was not safe to live around. I was scaring people. I was so out of my mind that it didn't matter my intentions, right? It didn't matter if I loved my friends, which I did. I still did. Even in my sickness, the love didn't go away. But what went away, I realized, was the actions that are tied to love and that mean love in the real world. Because when you're mentally ill, you can't love like that. You can't love because you need help, like getting back on track. And true love isn't mentally ill. Like, true love is sane and lucid and caring of yourself and then others, right? And so, yeah, I was hospitalized and institutionalized in Westchester Medical Center. Was my first go around, and I stayed there for like 2 weeks, and my family came and visited me. I met a group of people around my age, and we all kind of clicked up. It was like a couple of us that would like play board games and do the activities and stuff. And so at first I was like pretty much like feral. I was like very, very aggressive towards authority, and like I was never really physically aggressive, but I'm a large man. I'm like 6'2", anywhere between like 250 to 300 pounds. At this time, I was like a rail. I was so skinny. Oh my god. And oh my god, I was so skinny. And I was like 215 or something, and I'm like a very wide built person at 6'2", so like 215 is, and I didn't have any muscle either, so it's like I was just fucking tiny. And I looked, like malnourished because I wasn't taking care of myself, and I had such gaunt eyes, from not sleeping. And I was in this hospital, and I remember Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD was what was on the radio, and that shit, oh my goodness, it was like such a lifesaver, that song. There was nothing like listening to Hot 97 play Lucid Dreams for the 18th time in the hospital, and just realizing like there's something else out there, and there's other people out there, right? Because I started taking medicine. I started taking Depakote and Seroquel and Luvox for bipolar disorder 1. And so I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, officially diagnosed. And then I was diagnosed with this bipolar disorder 1, which is different than bipolar 2 in the mood swings and how, and specifically hypomania and hypermania, which are these states of manic episodes where sometimes
hypomania
is like mania that changes your personality in a day-to-day thing. I believe it's
hypomania.
You are spending more, you're chatty, you're up, you want to talk to people, you don't want to sleep as much. And then
hypermania
is when that goes even to a more life-altering or routine-altering force that lasts a little longer, and it's like a bigger wave, and it starts to separate yourself from your personality and like your natural traits. I'm turning the new fancy light on. Editor note: I have hypermania. I always get hypermania and hypomania confused. For the longest time, I didn't know if I had bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. I got the information at a weird point in my life, what can I say? But I deal with hypermania. I went into hypermanic states, like fucking Sonic, like hypermanic, bro. So, yeah, just for some context. So you're not just like, oh, you're up and happy and go lucky. It's like, oh, Jeff, in my instance, in my case, was not acting like himself. And I had dealt with the depression side of it without realizing that what was building up was an incredibly large psychotic break, fueled by mania, and I just got absolutely cooked. So I was in the hospital and I was on these 3 medicines, and I started to get somewhat in control because of the Depakote and the Seroquel. Depakote is an antipsychotic and anti-seizure medicine that stops this hypomanic state from occurring, I don't know, in your brain chemistry, by maintaining a certain level of Depakote in your bloodstream. So I have to get my blood checked, and if my Depakote levels are low, I need to change that, yada yada. There's all sorts of implications, right? And then Seroquel is a sleep aid that also regulates your serotonin, and so your serotonin is tied to your sleep. Both of them change, and Seroquel allowed me to fix my sleep schedule again. And then you have Luvox. So Luvox was less of a good thing for me. It changed. Here's where those nanobots in the water come up again. It changed something like that from just like a theory to obsessive compulsive tendencies focused around these paranoid delusions, right? Because they don't go away immediately when you start taking medicine. It's not like you break through on some sort of like hallucinogenic, but in reverse, right? Where you're just like, whoa, I'm back. That's so cool. That would be, I imagine, impossible because of just how jarring it would be, right? Because I was just like so different and in such a different headspace, I could never sit and follow a train of thought like this, right? That's like one of the reasons I'm doing YouTube, is because I'm like privileged to be able to speak like this and voice my opinions and my experience and tell my story. But the mania and my lack of concentration, my lack of focus due to like poor diet and exercise and everything like that, right, was keeping me from just being able to go in a line in an arc, right, instead of circles and spirals. So I would try to make this video, but it would be like 4 hours long. I would wind up editing forever. It would never come out. So now the goal is to make it much less than 4 hours. I hope it's sub 1 hour, but I don't really care. If it's longer, it'll be longer. I need to like do this, right? Because it's like I don't need to take notes on this. I don't need to put anything on paper for this. I just need to tell the story, right? And so I'm in the hospital. They put me on Luvox. The Luvox makes my paranoid delusions, like nanobots in the water, take over into obsessive compulsive full-blown patterns, right? Routines based on such. So like the different things focused on like washing my hands, putting things down the drain, lighting things on fire, but not necessarily with a lighter too, just lighting things on fire, electricity, like thinking I could cook meth or like speed or something with a jewel pod right in my PS4. Like doing different things with like hardware, like technology, and like doing like rituals type shit. Crazy, bro. Crazy. It was like it's something that you can't really like put into words, or like frame it in a way where a person understands my logic, because I will never understand the logic I was working on. It was a feeling, but the feeling was so over encumbering to your perspective that you're just wore down and you give way to it. It was very, very intense. And I got back from the hospital. Things did not get better. They, in fact, got arguably worse in a different way, because I was also on an instant release instead of extended release, which I'm on now. And extended release allows me to take 1 pill cycle a day, and instant release was a 3 pill cycle every day, which, let me tell you, anybody who's on a 3 pill cycle every day, I applaud your time management, because my time management is not good, and my time management back then was certainly not good enough for a 3 pill a day cycle, especially when the Luvox was contributing to this obsessive compulsive pattern, which I hadn't ever dealt with in my life. Like a true obsessive compulsive pattern, I had never once like dealt with it in this way, right? Where I relate to a lot of the things that that people with obsessive compulsive disorder, some of the people in my life, how they talk about life and the disorder and how it dictates your routines and stuff. This was the only point in my life where I ever felt that way. The Luvox and the obsessive compulsive disorder tendencies took way in a greater kind of push, and eventually led to me having to be hospitalized again. So both of these hospitalizations, the one, my mom took me to the emergency room, right? And then that was when I went to Westchester Med Center. It wasn't like it was the like emergency psychiatric unit, I believe is what it's like called. And then with the other times, so once I missed my 3-day cycle, where I missed my midday pill, and I was having a manic episode in Grand Central by noon, because I was on my way to school, and I was trying to go back to school and commute from Greenpoint, Brooklyn to the Upper East Side, which is not an easy commute for a sane person, let me tell you something, boy. But goddamn, was it impossible for me. And so I went on a tirade singing Ain't Afraid to Murder Something by Waka Flocka Flame and ASAP Ferg in Grand Central. And that was my choice for the day, and I was yelling the song through the streets, of course not saying the N-word too, which is really funny. I was still lucid enough to be like, I don't need to say that. But I was rapping that so loud in Grand Central that obviously a group of like 6 police officers all walked up to me. I was in the cafe, the underground cafe where the bathrooms are and stuff. I was like tramping through the fucking, these cops must have been like, God damn it. And I had my headphones on, I was rapping out loud anyways, obviously, duh. Putting on a show for people, That was one crazy YA performance, and a lot of people don't know they saw that, but eventually they'll be like, damn, I saw that guy put on a bit of I guess a show. A certain type of show. But, I was rapping it so loud, the police come up, group of 6 behind me, they tap me on the shoulder, and they start talking to me, and I, I yell, "I can't hear you." And I wind up getting tackled, and a cop puts his knee on my neck, and I obviously get arrested by this group of people, and I just felt like full body shivers right there. That was traumatizing. That fucking sucked, and it sucked for it to be so crazy in such crazy circumstances, right? But I got arrested. I was in the Grand Central Holdings cell, which is small, and it's just behind glass, and there's a police officer in front of you. And I was like screaming and screaming. This was right after XXXTentacion died, and I had all sorts of like crazy paranoid delusion, schizophrenia stuff, going on. Not schizophrenia necessarily, but like, how it's portrayed in popular media. And thus, I was, my mom was working with the guy from Grand Central Holding Station to get me in a hospital, put me in the right place, yada yada. The guy's lunch break happens, they switch shifts, and then all of a sudden, got a much more laissez-faire type of cop, let me back on the street. I don't know if I just could make a really good first impression and then get the fuck out of there, like if I like regrouped, but I have no idea. And so I was back out in the street, and then eventually I wound up having a similar thing happen to me, where I was in the Upper East Side. I had made it to school this time, and I started having a manic episode at Hunter. So it was really sad. I don't even know how many people I knew that saw me like that. I like tramped through hallways, all sorts of crazy shit, man. Like it was definitely the worst day of my life. It was like fucking insane. My mom brought me to school because I couldn't drive or commute safely, and I still had a manic episode at school. And this time I got arrested by a bunch of detectives that were really, really helpful, and they were more experienced and trained in being able to take a person who's having a mental health crisis. Thank God, these two guys, man, they took me straight to Joyce Hopkins, Francis John Hopkins, what fucking not that. St. Jude's emergency intake, I believe. And then I was swiftly escorted after like sitting in a liminal hallway full of people having mental health crises. Crazy experience, by the way. Like picture like a hospital back rooms filled with people all having like the worst mental health days of their lives, or one of them. And I was swiftly moved to Gracie Square in the Upper East Side, where I met my psychiatrist, who was like the the guy who leads you as a shepherd down the river Styx. Quick pop in. Yeah, I don't have a shirt on. What of it? It's Charon, the ferryman of the river Styx. Yeah, so that guy, he was a figure that led people down through the experience of death. I had a psychiatrist, a shrink, who was a middle-aged white woman, older, middle-aged, blonde white woman, almost like a stereotype of a shrink, and she helped me get back in action, right? And so from 2018 to 2019 through 2020 before COVID, she helped me rehabilitate. She set up my mom with a bunch of really good plans, and got me on extended release medicine, which wound up saving my life, right? And now it's like, so I've been on medicine now for 8 years, and pretty much 7 years, definitely. And I'm at a point where I don't need to take Depakote to sleep anymore, and I am able to fall asleep at a regular pace, and I'm actually thinking about lowering or stopping Seroquel, tapering off Seroquel, because it has a side effect of making you depressed. I think to counteract the mania and to counteract that heightened state of go, 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 it's like maybe no. Maybe you sleep 12 hours and lay in bed for an extended period of time and can't get out of it, and you're stuck there. Or maybe you have like no motivation to feed yourself or, shower. That definitely is something I've been dealing with, and it's this weird, like, bipolar is, they don't say bipolar for nothing, as far as like the opposites are so great, and the swings are honestly too hard to untangle emotionally and explain. It's something that I wouldn't wish this one on my worst enemy, It's pretty brutal, man. But I am back, and I've been back for a long time, like definitely like 4 or 5 years. And I've been getting back too, and so now's my get back, and I'm back. Fucking we're back, back. Bro, I can't wait to keep doing this, bro. I could do this every single day. I am going to go take my medicine and finish this challenge. Hopefully I finish this challenge. Oh, by the way, got a nice little lighting rig. Got a little monitor arm. I'm investing in myself. And I'm trying to make it out the hellscape of a soulless, being the wench of a soulless, luxury apartment building. So let's do this. I will see you guys on the flip side. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been your boy YA, shout out to the YAtion out there. Shout out. It's so bad. Shout out Pheromuna. Shout out Maddie JPEG. What the fuck is her name? I don't know. I'll plug it here with my editor. My editor will plug it here. Shirtless editor Jeff Beck. Once again, it's M4DDIE_JPEG. Maddie with a 4 instead of an A_JPG. Follow the squad. Follow the squad. Yeah, get on it. But thanks so much for watching. If you made it to this point, this is a little Easter egg. But I hope that everybody has a great night, and I love you guys very much. Anybody who watched this far, I definitely love you. And I don't know, man. Thank you guys for giving me this platform. Thank you to all my fucking 62 subs, bro. And only rising. 62 and up, bro. 62 and up. I like that. It's gonna be our first merch drop. I'm enterprising, dog. Catch me out here. Please, for the love of God, I need to find a new strategy to beat this mission. Bye, guys. Have a great night.